The first part established the world that Case was being pulled out of, while the second part shows him doing his thing, including the first heist that he was brought in for to get the Dixie Flatline. Now, the Flatline is a ROM construct, a recreation of the great cowboy who was one of two that trained Case, but exists in pure electronic form, except it's ROM, read-only memory. Thus, it doesn't have the ability to formulate new memories. Still, the Dixie Flatline's talent is invaluable. During life, Flatline earned his name because his work resulted in total brain death, and it still wasn't enough to stop him from continuing as a cowboy. In fact, Dixie Flatline's real death happened because of a defective Russian heart that he got in a POW camp. It wasn't particularly good, but it allowed such perfect timing for him that he kept it. Indicative of the perspective of cowboys, that meat doesn't matter. It's the purity of the matrix that does. This is repeated when the Finn informs Case that they'll be setting up a sim-stim for Molly to wear, so that all of her physical sensations can be experienced by Case during the heist. That, again, is meat stuff, human sensations, and a cowboy has no use for that. And yet, Case clearly is quite happy with his drug addiction and seems to enjoy the sex that he's having with Molly. Meat stuff, but it's tolerated because it brings pleasure to his mind. Because really, that's the only real part of Case's body that he seems to treasure. The heist is performed with the assistance of the Panther Moderns, nihilistic techno-fetishists, as seen by their obsession with technology in all of its forms. One, for instance, has the ability to see that Case is riding inside Molly's body thanks to the sim-stim. Another has had his face replaced by tank-grown shark skin and sharpened animal teeth put in his mouth. Biological technology. But like the rest, used even at street level and clearly for purposes that were not originally intended. This gritty use of tech is another illustration of how Gibson is not making technology a magic wand. It's a haphazard collection of things that can be applied to different uses, often not the way they originally intended. The heist, for instance, does not dwell on Case doing some Hollywood hacking to bypass all defenses and make things smooth, save for the occasional tense action moment for our audience. No. Instead, a lot of it is helped along by Panther Moderns using payphones to upload programs or to spread misinformation to create exploitable vulnerabilities. In the real world, we don't stop using low tech simply because it's low tech. You probably have seen at least one analog clock in the last month somewhere. People still do have watches, wind-up digital whatever, even though they've pretty much been rendered obsolete by the fact that phones exist. They do provide a slightly more convenient option to see what time it is, or other features. Or think perhaps about those Back to the Future locks that scan the thumbprint and unlock the door for you. Those exist now. You can go out and buy one if you want to. They're not that expensive. But for most of us, a good old-fashioned metal key is good enough. Just because something is more technologically advanced doesn't mean we have to throw the old thing away. Gibson wisely recognizes that using simple, if not outright primitive activities can get the job done just as well, if not better, than the seemingly more advanced or more sophisticated options. This point is discovered later on, when after the Dixie Flatline is acquired and they need to get into a network. There is again no super key tapping, access denied flashing on the screen constantly bullcrap kind of hacking. They go to a pirate's paradise, where people put up access codes so the pair can get into Bell Europa. The solution to getting through the reinforced steel vault is someone handed you a key. The heist is not without incident. During the attempt, Molly has her leg broken and will spend some time trying to fully recover from it. But the operation itself was a success, and Armitage meets with Lupus Yonder Boy, who represents the Panther Moderns, who refers to Armitage as Mr. Who, an important point because when Armitage wonders if he should even pay the way things went down, Yonder Boy notes that he will pay because you're Mr. Who, not a Mr. Name. And it's not just the authorities that could be a problem there. As seen, there's an entire underground subculture in all manner of forms and motivations who are making use of tech for their own ends. The implications of such a threat are immediately apparent. Much like with magic, to know someone's true name can give you a certain amount of power over them. Yet ironically, despite assuring that he is not a Mr. Name, the Panther Moderns do, in fact, have a name to give to Case, about who the real employer is, the one behind Armitage. Wintermute is the name that Molly paid them to find for her, because she wants to know more about who is behind this, especially given who their next target is for the operation that this group is being put together for. A man named Riviera. Riviera is a top-level creator of illusions using technology. So good is he that, when he is caught in Turkey and knocked out, a monster appears to tear out of his body, ready to attack anyone who might get near him. An illusion clearly meant to protect him from anyone trying to kill, kidnap, or rob him. It's only because the Turkish police know about his tricks that Molly, Case, and the contact, Sebastian, are able to catch him while Riviera is out picking up some drugs. Riviera is a sociopath. Like Case, Molly has read Riviera's file, and she's discovered that he's so twisted that what gets him off is betraying the object of his affection. The reason for this broken collection of individuals is because this status makes them easier to manipulate. For instance, the reason for Case over any other cowboy is that he could be put into a situation where he wouldn't dare risk backstabbing them. No other cowboy would have permitted them to put him in a situation where the toxin sacs could be implanted. Having people on a leash like that is part of Wintermute's plan, to no doubt reduce the number of things that can go wrong because of people being foolish. Whatever dumb things Case might want to do, he can be relied upon to still see this job through so that he can keep his connection to the Matrix. As for Armitage, Molly wants to know what his deal is too. Hence Case and the Dixie Flatline needing to get into Belle Europa. It's getting into the London archives where they learn the truth about him, that Armitage is a mask, not merely a name, but a completely new identity placed over that of the survivor of Screaming Fist, Colonel Corto. This fills in more of the backstory about the war between Russia and the United States, which is probably when Bonn, the capital of West Germany at the time, was nuked. We learn that Screaming Fist was an attempt to get in over Russia in stealthcraft so their console jockeys could hack in and upload the first true military virus. It went bad. The planes were spotted and shot down, and Corto was horribly injured. His testimony before Congress was manufactured to protect the careers of a few of the powerful men responsible, and in the end, Colonel Corto went insane. Wintermute arranged for him to be given experimental techniques in France to overlay the new personality, Armitage, to cure him of his condition by essentially removing him. Now Armitage is nothing more than a tool, even sitting there and staring at nothing when he has nothing that he's supposed to be doing. He exists solely to advance Wintermute's agenda. As for Wintermute, it's revealed to be an artificial intelligence. Much like the name Armitage is drawn from Lovecraft's The Dunwich Horror, Wintermute was taken from a recent Philip K. Dick novel. Wintermute even attempts to make contact with Case, who is unnerved at it, especially when, as he walks past a bank of payphones, each phone rings exactly once as he passes it. We'll get into Wintermute more later on. Right now, what they do know is that Wintermute is connected to a company called Tesche Ashpool, but more information is brought in by the Finn. In addition to being a supplier of tech for groups like Armitage or screening for bugs like for Molly, the Finn fences software, but knows of other fences too. One of those, Smith, is an art dealer as well. In keeping with the use of technology, Smith had an implant installed to help him learn all that he would need to know for that, a little bit to help him get ahead. What happens in the story that the Finn tells, though, is that a guy named Jimmy had stolen a very unusual bust that was also a computer, extremely beautiful but completely pointless. But they trace it back to Tesche Ashpool. Well, they underestimated how much value it held, because a Japanese man that Smith could clearly see was a clone killer comes by to collect it, pays what Smith said he had been planning to sell it for, and then kills Jimmy. It made no sense, since the Yakuza would have neither paid Smith nor even allowed him to live. So they determined he must be connected to Tessier Ashpool. After the Finn had done some digging, it was determined that they are a family corporation, effectively. No shares have been traded for a century now. The connection between TA and Wintermute is unnerving for everyone, especially knowing that the family has their own personal killer on ice. This section of the book is called The Shopping Expedition. Not only does it involve purchasing things like the high tech that Case needs, as well as outfitting Molly with some tech like the SimStim, but also with the acquisition of the people that Wintermute needs to further whatever its ends are. Everyone is pulled in with an offer of payment, but also with a lever that can be used to keep them in place. Even Molly's professional pride is a weakness that she knows is being used against her. The irony with all of this is that Wintermute, being an AI, is actual property. It may technically have citizenship, but everything that allows it to exist is owned by TA. The Dixie Flatline will later mock this. I own your brain and what you know, but your thoughts have Swiss citizenship. Sure. Lots of luck, AI. Yet this describes the hold that it has over them, because it has those levers against them that it needs. They have their thoughts, but in effect, it owns them and what they know.